Welcome back to the Genuine Ginger podcast. Thanks for being here. My name is Mackenzie Quintana. I am your hostess here. On social media, I am kind of known as the Genuine Ginger, so that's why it's the Genuine Ginger podcast. I try to be genuine in what I share here and just share, and I'm a redhead, so that should be go without saying. But I'm just here to share the things that I have learned, the things that I'm currently learning that have really helped me turn my life around for the better, that have helped me feel more fulfilled, and that have really helped me take actual steps towards becoming the woman that I have always desired to be. So I'm definitely still a work in progress, but I am definitely a lot farther along the road than I ever was before. So I'm really grateful for that, and I'm really grateful that I get to share this knowledge with you. So, okay, so I am kind of on a high. Well, okay, no. So last week, my husband and I celebrated our 11th anniversary, and so we went on a trip to Puerto Vallarta in Mexico, and it was so hot. It was so hot and so humid, and we stayed in like this treehouse in the middle of the jungle, and there was this bird that I swear its nest was like either right on top of us or right underneath us, and it was so loud during the night, like all night long it was squawking. And so like it was just very annoying. And this little area where there was our treehouse was in, it was, like I said, it was like in the middle of the jungle, but there was some like, features or whatever, and there was supposed to be this water feature, and that was like this really pretty little waterfall with like these little fresh pools that we could swim in, and when we got there it wasn't working. So that was a bummer. We went on an excursion, and we got to, one of like the main reasons that we decided to go on this trip was because we wanted to see some snorkeling. We wanted to find some good snorkeling, and we'd heard that this area was great for snorkeling. So we booked a tour to go snorkeling, and my husband got sick on the boat ride. And we didn't even really see that many fish. So, I mean, there was like one or two cool looking ones, but it was kind of a disappointment. And then we got back and saw that this company had, some other excursions, tour type things, and there was one that looked so cool, and it wasn't available for us to book for the next day, and so that was also kind of a bummer. What else? It was really hot. It was really hot. And I didn't want to come back home. I didn't want to come back home and come back to real life. Let's see, what else about our trip? Some of the places that we ate were just okay. The food was just okay. And it was really hot, and I didn't really get to see any like sea life that I wanted to, and there were crabs everywhere. Like the like only sea creatures that maybe not the only ones, but like one that I was not really cared to see was everywhere, and it was kind of creepy at night. And yeah, that was our trip, and all of that is true. That is true about our trip last week. Also, we went on a trip last week and had the most amazing time. We stayed in this treehouse in the middle of the jungle, which was gorgeous. It was so pretty. It was so cool to be in the middle of the jungle. And yes, there were a few times where it was a little bit creepy, but it was so fun. It was such a neat experience, and it was so beautiful everywhere. We had booked this tour where we went to like a cave, and then like a secret cave, and then went snorkeling, and it was so cool to get into the cave. We had to like like not dive in, but like there were big waves crashing, and so we had to like time it right to like get into the cave, or else it felt like my adrenaline was rushing, and it was, I don't know, it was just a really cool, really neat experience. And then we got back and wanted to book another excursion with this same company, and we ended up booking an experience with dolphins. So my whole life I have wanted to swim. Well, okay, when I was little, I really wanted to swim with dolphins, and then like, you know, that kind of like, I guess that dream just kind of faded. And so when we were like looking to see, you know, if there was other things that we could book, and like the swimming with dolphins was there, and I was like, what if we swam with dolphins? And like my husband was like, yeah, like let's do it. And so we ended up doing it, and it totally healed my inner child. It was so like, it was probably my favorite, or at least top 3 favorite parts of the trip, and it wasn't even planned. So it was so fun. Like there's just something about dolphins, they're so magical. It was so fun, and like, oh yeah, I can't even explain it to be honest, because it was just such a neat experience. There was a private little, well, not private, but like a hidden beach near our tree house that we got to go, and we got to watch surfers surf and watch the most beautiful sunsets, and it was just so peaceful and so fun. And it was just such an amazing trip. Just so fun. I did not want to come home, because it was just the perfect balance between like fun and doing things and just relaxing. We got to eat so much food that was so cheap and so good. The little town that was near us was just a fun little like touristy town with fun little shops, and it was just such a good time. And that was our trip. And that is also true. All of that is also true. So did you notice a difference between those two, those two versions of me telling the experience of our trip? I did this example in a class that I teach. In my church congregation. Every couple of months I teach a class to the women of our church, and I did this with a different scenario. And in that scenario, in that lesson that I was teaching, it was focusing more on the words that we speak. And I thought it was very interesting that one of the questions that came up in this lesson was like, what did those two different ways that I speak, the first scenario, the first story that I told versus the second story that I told, what does it say about me as a person? And I just thought that was a really interesting question. And I think that it says a lot. It says a lot about who I am as a person, depending on the things that I focus on. And I feel like that is truly what it boils down to. And I even shared this in my stories while I was on the trip. Like, yeah, like there were parts of it that were tiring, and it was hot, and there were, and sometimes there was waiting and, things like that aren't that great and exciting and fun. And yeah, there was a really noisy bird that kind of made it hard for us to sleep the first couple nights. And we were in the middle of the jungle, and there were also really, really amazing things, and it could have been hotter, and we had AC in our little treehouse, so we were at least able to sleep comfortably, and you know what I mean? There's always in life, there's always gonna be good and bad. There's always gonna be positive and negative, pros and cons, and it says a lot about us. And not only does it say a lot about us, but it also it really changes your life when you can choose to focus on the positive. And I know that I've shared this before, but I feel like this is kind of just a different approach at talking about it. It's just really choosing what you're going to focus on. And what if all I did was focus on the first story, the things that I talked about in the first story, all of the quote unquote negative parts of my trip. I would come home just being blah, that was a waste of my money, a waste of my time, a waste of my, my parents and my in-laws who watched our kids, a waste of their time. Like, how great would that be to have that attitude versus the second story where like there was just so much magic and so much fun and so much good that happened that I can choose to focus on and come home just feeling so grateful and lit up about the trip, and so grateful, for all the things that I experienced, and feeling so filled and so good. And then that is the energy that I'm moving forward in, right? Like it just makes such a huge difference. And I've even had to and this is a muscle that you have to practice, and you also have to stay on top of it. Because even I, right, like I've been practicing, you could say, this technique, been practicing this way of living, of focusing on the good for 4 years now. And I was a little bit feeling bummed. That part is true, where I was feeling really bummed to come home and quote unquote go back to real life, and I was just like, oh, I don't want to go back. And I even told my husband, I'm gonna go back and the kids are gonna be whining at me all the time again, and blah 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 blah. And I even as I was saying it, I was like, oh, but no, that's not how I want to live my life anymore. That's who I used to be, where that was what I focused on. And so even since coming back home, I've had to remind myself and readjust my focus often so that I am feeling grateful to be home and grateful to be with my kids and grateful for, the life that I have right now while I'm at home, just kind of in the everyday life, versus resenting it and just wishing I was back on vacation, or just living, looking forward to the next vacation and waiting to be able to feel good again, the whole living for the weekend concept, right? That's not the way to live. You don't just wait for happiness to experience happiness on the weekend, or to experience it on your, vacations and trips, whatever. There's so much happiness and joy to be experienced between the weekends, between the trips, right? And for example, today I was sitting in my room. I had just finished vacuuming and stuff, which, that's not a super exciting thing to do, but I was just sitting in my room, resting a little bit, and I could hear my kids in my office, and all four of them were playing, sorry, my voice. All four of them were playing the game Sorry, and I could hear them just laughing and playing. And yes, there was a little bit of fighting and yelling at each other, but I chose to focus on the laughing and the playing and the good time that they were having. And then all of a sudden I realized, oh my goodness, for a while now, I have just had this really deep desire for us as a family, and my kids, especially as siblings, to be able to just have really good, strong sibling bonds and family bonds. And that's one of the reasons that I chose to homeschool. And so to see a little realization of that, a little, glimpse of that actually happening, was so good. But I would have missed it. I wouldn't have noticed it had I not taken the time to slow down and like I said, choose to focus on, choose to hear it, choose to not just be oh, they're in there fighting and whining again. Oh no, but they're also laughing and playing, and really, I can tell they're really enjoying their time together in there. And then also to recognize oh my goodness, that is a manifestation of a desire that I've had. And and then also to just not just be oh cool, and then move on, but to sit in that of wow, I am so grateful, it really does take a lot of being intentional and really, really choosing your thoughts, choosing your focus. And sometimes that feels like a lot of work. Like I said, I had to really kind of I had a little bit of a whiplash the last few days of part of, wanting to focus on like, ugh, I'm back home, I want to be on vacation, and then like slap out of it and like, no, but you're like, look, there's so much good to be experienced here. And like, sometimes that's a lot of work and it's exhausting, but it's so worth it, in my opinion. It's so like I've said like a lot. But I would say that is one of the biggest things that have made, or one of the things that have made the biggest difference in my life over the last 4 years, is just choosing my focus, choosing what I want to focus on, and really letting myself sit in and kind of savor those good moments and really recognize. It's like that quote that says, like, look around and see, what you have right now that are things that you prayed for years ago. That's not the quote. The quote is much better written. But basically that, like, so much of the life that you have right now, if you stop to think about it, you prayed for it. Maybe not. But I probably at least some things were things that you prayed for years ago. And so to be able to just sit in gratitude and recognize those things, it takes slowing down, and it takes being intentional with your thoughts and your focus, and it takes practice, and that's okay. Like I said, I've had a little bit of whiplash over the last 2 days of like, oh wait, no, I'm not gonna think that way. I don't want to think that way. I want to focus on the good, and I want to feel joy for my life that I have right now, and as well as excitement for, what's to come. Like, there's nothing wrong with looking forward to the future and looking forward to the weekend and looking forward to the next trip, but don't do it don't let that take away from seeing the joy in the everyday and seeing the good and the beauty and the wonder and the magic in the everyday, because it's there. It just sometimes takes a little bit of effort to see it. But like I said, it is so worth it. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening, and choose joy. Focus on joy. Focus on the good. See if you can notice just one thing today, or maybe 3 things that are magical or that could bring you joy that maybe you might not have noticed if you hadn't taken the time to be intentional about it and to slow down a little bit. All right. I love you lots. We'll talk to you next week. Bye.